1.
Yearning to play a few rounds of Gwent. That ought to set me straight.
It's Commander Sword, episode 94. Well, 90 episodes. You might remember a guy named Greyboxer joining me for the first time on the podcast. And here he is again, once again, to talk about lore, about The Witcher. And why would we be talking about that exactly? Because Thronebreaker news came out today, like hours ago. Let's talk about it on this episode of Commander's Horn. Why, good afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you happen to be. It is September 27th, 2018, a great day for your weekly Gwent podcast. I am Dane McBeard, and I'm joined, not as always, but happy to be joined on this occasion by the one and only Midnight Viking, Greyboxer. How the hell are you, my friend?
What is up, McBeard? What is up, Commander's Horn listeners and Commando?
Oh, man, it's not the sound clip. It's the real man actually saying it. So that's great. This is nice. This is a nice treat, I hope, for everybody watching. I didn't think I was going to do a podcast today. The original plan was we knew news was going to come out this week. We knew that there was media at CD Projekt Red on Tuesday, and we knew that things were going on. We saw pictures of Berger wearing a very snazzy blazer and a Thronebreaker shirt, as well as my buddy Moonlight CDPR, Seb, also known as Giant Boar. He was also wearing a Thronebreaker shirt. He stopped by my stream earlier today as well. Level designer as well at CD Projekt Red. Good connection to have. Hope to talk to him soon. But we can talk about Thronebreaker now because we've seen the news. It broke today. It broke at 10 a.m. when I launched my stream, surprised when it happened. And now there's just a lot to talk about. Greyboxer, what do you think? Finally seeing this footage and finally seeing kind of everything to come together, seeing it blend with what we used to know about Thronebreaker and what we now know about the future of Gwent's appearance, the whole thing coming together. What was today like when you were following the news?
Today was insane because we'd been hearing rustlings in the bushes for a few days now that, hey, there's some influencers who are in CD Projekt Red. There's potentially, some Twitter leaks going to happen. Maybe we're going to see a video maybe drop by Friday. And lo and behold, NA time, early in the morning, we get an entire NDA drop on all the Thronebreaker information. So we've got half an hour of hands-on. I think IGN's YouTube has that.
Yeah.
We had the story trailer drop and basically loads of information just sort of, inundating us. And this is a good week for it too, because there's other, card games information out there. And I like to think that, CD Projekt Red's blowing its horn right now with Thronebreaker. And what we've seen so far is probably more than I expected. I thought maybe we get like a hype video. I wasn't expecting to see the depth of really, like I said, the release of the NDA.
Well, I mean, when you got a month left, I feel like teasing is only... I mean, they could have teased it, but then we would have been like, yeah, Thronebreaker, we know, it's coming. Yeah, we've talked about it for a year now. But seeing it was a different story. And yeah, the NDA dropped so they basically, it's kind of like when we went to go preview the Nilfgaard patch way back in January 2017. Greyboxer, do you remember going to Warsaw with me, meeting Mogwai and Merchant for the first time, and KBT and Chaotic Priest? Wherever the winds have taken him.
Do I remember?
It
was a highlight of my adult life. Yes, I remember.
Yeah. So what happened was when we went to this special Nilfgaard release event way back in the day, we had the opportunity to see stuff, record stuff, but we couldn't talk about it for a couple days. And it looks like the media kind of got the same treatment. But boy, did they get some stuff. I mean, it seems like every outlet had a different take on it. I watched a video in Polish that kind of showed its own thing, but also showed war camps for the first time. And then IGN came in with their 30-minute video, and it's an interview video. It's I forget the name of. I'm so terrible. Like, a lot of this news just dropped hours ago, and I've been trying to round it up so we can do this podcast. So I forget the name of everybody involved with the video, but I will put the link in the show notes, and I'm actually going to drop. Well, I can't really touch my browser right now. I don't want to upset the video, but if anybody has the link for that video and wants to drop it in the chat, Greyboxer, you included, we can get you to follow along for the live broadcast. But For the people who are listening to the audio version of this, there's going to be a lot of visuals we're going to talk about. So we put a link to this particular IGN video that was put in, so you can read it, you can watch it, or follow along with us. But the main thing is that everybody got their own exclusive thing. IGN's interview was a specific interview with one of the writers, and they played, it was like him hands-on playing, and it was like they saw stuff that other people didn't see. Nilfgaard versus Shoop was shown in this video. But it was only shown in that video. The two other videos didn't have that battle. So there was a lot floating around, and I kind of want to catch up at the end of the day to see it. But Greyboxer, just kind of off the top, what was your favorite thing to see? What was your favorite part about all the things that you saw and read today?
Yeah, so there's a lot to really take in because we knew nothing about Thronebreaker before these videos dropped. And I think it might have been 6 or 8 months ago, we saw a few leaks of some assets. I think there were some maps and buildings, that kind of crap. Nothing really that you could really constitute as a leak. But today we got to see the way they're going to do storyline. We got to see the way they're going to do decision making, the way you traverse the world. We got to see how combat's going to go, the transitions into combat. What we really got to see was sort of a living, breathing world that you go through. And I think my favorite part is understanding that we're getting another Witcher game, and that this isn't just fluff. If you play any other type of RPG, or if you play any type of action game or anything that gives you the illusion of choice, where you make decisions and nothing really changes, it's just a dialogue option, you'll see just from these short clips of the video that Thronebreaker does a very Witcher-esque job of giving you meaningful choices that are going to have impacts. And specifically, you know, you could see that
what are you looking at? You're trying to.
I just lost my entire train of thought.
You're trying to get there.
I was thinking about. I was playing Final Fantasy 12 recently.
And you're trying to remember the name of things, but you've got terminology from a different game in your head. That's fine. That's a good game.
But it's to the point where you understand that these characters have backstories that you're going to learn about, and it's not going to be just dumped on your head. It's going to be through dialogue. We learn that Maeve is very particular, and we learn that she wants to have this prepared when she gets to camp and these kinds of things. And those aren't things that you can just, you know, spell out. These are things that they're playing out for you as the person who's experiencing the game. So I like the depth that we're going to get from a storyline perspective.
Yeah, that answer doesn't really surprise me from you, Greyboxer, because when we first kind of met, you were like the lore guy. You wanted to talk about what these cards are, who these people are, for maybe people who haven't experienced The Witcher to the extent of, you can't see it on this screen, but I can see it in your Skype. I see your whole row of Witcher books. I've got a few myself. There's, you know, I always like to show this off. I am getting through it, plodding away through the last week. But you get, you know, you were the story guy, you were the lore guy, and that's always been a thing. So I know you're gonna, now even though you've stepped away from Gwent for the most part, you are very, very excited to play this because you're an RPG guy, you're a Witcher guy, and I think that that's a really good thing to look forward to because, yeah, we're getting a new Witcher game. That was what, okay, so a while back when closed beta went into public beta, they released a really cool video of Gwent and Ciri playing, Geralt and Ciri playing Gwent in a tavern. The Nilfgaardians come, and then, you know, Geralt ignies them away, and Ciri flashes all over the place, and then they walk out of there. And I remember when I saw that trailer, when Gwent was coming out of closed beta, I tweeted, are you guys excited? Because, I mean, we've been playing with the mechanics of Gwent, but we're getting a new Witcher game. What's up? And that tweet was misconstrued. I think it went up on Reddit saying McBeard knows something that we don't. What's going on? But it's been like over a year since then. But I've been waiting for a new Witcher game, which was going to be Gwent's storyline. I knew it was going to be good, and it looks good. So the lore looks good, for sure. And the choices are good, too, because it seems like, because this is a strategy puzzler, when you make choices that affect the storyline, it's actually going to affect your strategy. It's going to affect the difficulty of some battles. It's going to affect your resources. So and it's going to affect the story as well. So you're going to see ripples. We saw in the game where if you were able to stop some sort of Nilfgaardian reinforcements in the battle subsequent to that choice, those reinforcements would arrive or not arrive and make that battle more difficult. So the territory that concept alone can explore looks like there's going to be 20 different endings, they said, Greyboxer. 20 potentially different endings, 75 plus side quests. If you haven't seen thewitcher.com/en/Thronebreaker or something, you got to check the link in the show notes. If you haven't been to the official site, Oh, the screenshot. If you're ready, the pre-order is up. We know it's. What do you think about the price, Greyboxer? $30 US. What do you think about that?
$30 is, I would say normally it's steep for what they were going to be making before.
Yes.
Right. So they had initially planned this as an add-on to Gwent. They're just making Thronebreakers. Hey, here's a little single-player adventure featuring Gwent as combat. We're gonna attach to the standalone free-to-play Gwent. And then you're gonna have to pay for that. So $30 sounds about right for that. But what happened is they basically went all CDPR on it and just vomited story everywhere. And so now it's an actual video game with a real plot and 20 endings. So now it's still $30.
I mean, you know what $30 can get you? You know what $30 can get you a couple of years ago? 2 Witcher 3 expansions. Weren't they like $15 each? Ridiculous that they were that cheap. In Gwent, I mean, I passed my stream over to Shin Mary, and he was hyping all over the place. With Thronebreaker as well. And the way he said it is that we've been, quote, freeloading off Gwent for so long, end quote, because we have been, we get generous kegs at the end of every season. Lots of us who have been playing since closed beta have an almost full collection at this point, and we're all going to have full collections when Homecoming hits for Gwent. That, $30 does not seem like the end of the world for a new Witcher game, personally. I mean, that's just me. You guys know I'm a company shill, right? Reddit and everybody?
Yeah.
You guys know I'm a yes man.
I will say this.
We got to have an opinion about it.
The prices don't seem to be globally adjusted, really. They're based on the US dollar. So I have heard comments that this game is extremely expensive in other countries. Specifically, it's nearly as expensive as the full Witcher game based on the conversion rate and stuff like that. So like there are people who might be priced out of this to begin with just because it's the conversion rates. But I don't know. I think 30 is okay if you're going to get 30 hours of gameplay. And this is what we've seen sort of repeated everywhere is it's 20 to 30 hours. And we obviously can't confirm that, but we've played other CD Projekt Red games, and the hour estimates are probably an underestimate.
Yeah. Well,
So
they
when
said
you're
Witcher was like 100 hours,
value-
right? So
What's that?
Witcher was like 100 hours, they said. No, I definitely spent that many hours on it.
Yeah, I haven't completed Witcher 3 in less than 100. So even if they said 100, it's still an underestimate. That being said, for $30, I expect a pretty polished game. Since I'm paying essentially full price, I'm expecting maybe, hopefully, a little bit more than what I saw in some instances. There was a couple of things in the trailer and the gameplay videos that I wasn't super thrilled by, which are specifically to do with how the combat starts.
How it starts
from the world map.
Oh, okay.
Where it's like we're just walking around, and then
Let's bring this up here.
gasp! It's an Alghoul. And then suddenly there's cards everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like that. Yeah.
If they couldn't have figured out a transition for that, and that's actually a criticism I've had of live Gwent for a while, is that the loading screen is boring, waiting for matches is boring, and then there's no transition into a match. You basically are taken from select a match to
I got an ad running here. I apologize, guys, for the video podcast. I'm not going to edit this out, but I am going to just get right back to Greyboxer. There's an ad playing. My apologies, folks. Because I wanted to get the video playing while we were talking about the video. And, the ad just started playing. So we're good. Back to what we were talking about. I think $30 is not... I don't think $30 is full price for a game. No, I don't think so. When we're playing Destiny and Monster Hunter and we're playing God of War this year, I don't think $30 is full price for a game. I think it's half price for a game. But at the same time, when you compare these games to Destiny and God of War and, Monster Hunter, it seems like half a game. And not in that there's half a game there, but in that the games that I'm describing are huge immersive 3D worlds that took longer than this game to make. And this game, while it has a lot of charm graphically and it has a lot of really cool things and it's doing everything it's trying to do very well, and it does it well, but you could say that this isn't AAA. So it's not AAA and it's not indie. Indie game, $15. AAA game, 75 plus. I'm kind of ballparking numbers here because I know there's a difference between American and Canadian dollars, euros, Polish zloty, and all that. So it fluctuates, but I'd say that $15 kind of indie and then 70 plus AAA. So this is landing kind of in the middle, erring on the side of cheaper, I think. I think that's a good price. And I think that if you want to say, is this worth 2 movies for me as a fan of this franchise? I think I'd say yes. I don't think it's not going to deliver in any specific way. it's an interesting way you described going into combat and seeing cards appear. So I'm going to switch over now to the video. So we're going to kind of watch and talk here. So, and this is maybe a little bit closer up than I thought, and it's also well, oh man, this is why we don't rush a podcast. The point is,
it's okay.
It goes from a dude on the map on the road to a whole bunch of cards on the field, and somehow you feel like there's something lost in that transition.
I do. I feel like there's something that could have happened in between as a transition, as just a screen of art, right, showing the cards of the ghouls going at the cards of your people, even just like like the loading screen as it is, and they show the loading screens for Thronebreaker, and they are identical to the Gwent loading screens, which are it's almost entirely card art and then some text. I don't see why they couldn't do something like that, but with a little bit more text, just to transition you, because it is a little jarring, especially if I'm not playing this because I like card games or because I love Gwent. I'm playing this because I love The Witcher. So I'm coming from The Witcher 3, which has Gwent as walk up to tavern, speak to innkeeper, play Gwent, because what else is there to do? So this game, I think, is missing a little bit in that translation, which I think will really, I mean, if they can add something, or if there's something that could be patched in, it's probably too late. So I just need to stop whining about it. But I think that it's a little bit less immersive.
I guess that's fair. I mean, this is a very unique situation where we have a game that is based off of, it's a spin-off, right? You'd say that this is a spin-off? That's kind of how the articles are talking about it. Spin-off from The Witcher, and Witcher was a very combat-heavy game, but there was also a strong story-driven element. And a lot of exploration and that kind of thing, and going from point to point. So it seems like point to point is there. It's not like a click on the place on the map and my character walks there. It's like I am manually walking there and I'm exploring every rock and tree and house along the way. So that's pretty cool. And I think that it's fantastic that the map looks huge. So the world that we're getting is good. So this is, again, standard fare for The Witcher and what I expect. Seems like items and looting seem to be a thing, but although it appears that there's 3 resources kind of going on at any given time: your gold, your wood, and your troops. So how that plays out will be interesting. But finally, combat. Now, Witcher was a combat-based game. You have like lots of crazy sword play, and this is Gwent, where Gwent was in The Witcher, but not like this. And Gwent is being played by you, but not by the characters in the story. It's kind of a weird, I mean, it is kind of exactly what the main joke was. Gwent was a little game in The Witcher, and now this is a little game in Gwent, but it's like bigger than it's ever been, and Gwent seems larger than life with this new board. So generally, I think the presentation is above and beyond what I expected from Thronebreaker, in line with what I am expecting as far as hours played and price. And I mean, it's honestly hard for me to be wanting in any way. I think I'm just down with the whole thing. It's hard. I want to have objective criticism about things, but they positioned it from the standpoint of the press, right? They made it look good, and it looked good to me, especially those screenshots on the site. The 6-card Manticore, did you see that, Greyboxer?
Yeah, that was amazing. If I could have found the video where that was from, I was digging around and I couldn't find the video where they played against it. I would have said that was my favorite part, but since I wasn't able to, it's really the way that they're fleshing out the character stories and stuff. Although I will say the voice acting is pretty good, but good luck watching the first 12 minutes video that you'll see out there. Good luck trying to figure out whether or not the first the chubby guy that comes up and is asking me for help with some bandits.
Yes.
I couldn't figure out if this was Jon Snow or if it was King Robert.
Are you talking about the voice actor?
Yeah, it was like the best mix of the two of them.
Is there an IMDb link for Thronebreaker where we can look at the cast? Do we see Kit Harington, or what's his name, who played Baratheon? I mean, it's possible. It's not. It wouldn't be the first time a Game of Thrones cast member has been in a Witcher game. Charles Dance, anybody? Amir. So I mean, I think that that's the other thing we should probably talk about. As a story-driven game, dialogue is very important. Writing is very important. It seems great. I'll tell you something. This is a quick side note and kind of off topic. I played the new Warcraft expansion. This is a while back when the Warcraft expansion hit, and I promise I will only talk about this for 1 minute. So there's a big story in the Warcraft universe. Like, a character makes a heel turn and goes from being not a good character, but let's say a normal character, to being like a psycho. And it's like, oh, Warcraft, they've been I'm getting timed by Greyboxer. It's like, oh, they always make it seem very ambiguous at the beginning of a story, but at the end it's all going to make sense. Let me tell you, I played that expansion. A lot of it was good, but the writing was abysmal and the voice acting was terrible. Like, it stunk. I didn't believe anything any of those characters were saying at all. The Thronebreaker preview that I saw was leaps and bounds ahead of anybody else. Like, trust me, when it comes to voice acting, do not phone it in, because that resonated with my chat and it resonated with me. The writing seemed fine. The writing it all fit, right? It all fit within what I would expect from The Witcher. So it all sounded good. 11 different languages they're going to localize this in, and the characters' lips move when they talk. Man, like that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work just there. Just what I just told you right now, lips moving to 11 different localized languages, 11 different sets of dialogue for 30 hours of gameplay plus, with different dialogue choices and 20 different endings. 11. So multiply however long you think that would take by 11. It's nuts.
You seem pretty excited, McBeard.
I am excited because that's a lot of work. And that's just on that aspect. Imagine how much work they put on the actual game.
So what I'm looking at is I'm looking at a lot of these cards, and a lot of these cards have strength values which does not quite mesh with our idea of what Homecoming is going to be in Live Gwent. And some of them are like 20 power or 8 power with 4 armor. Like, a lot of units are stronger than we expected, because we're expecting, based on the leaks that we've seen from the PTR for Homecoming, we're expecting a lot of 4+1s, 4-1s, 4+2s, blah, 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 blah. What I'm seeing is a lot of Lyrian cards, which is cool. We haven't seen Lyria yet in Gwent at all. And although CD Projekt Red said that there would be a number of cards that are specific to Thronebreaker and not included in Live Gwent, I'm wondering how true that really is, because a lot of these cards look like they could be translated over to Homecoming Live Gwent, provided they're given the correct provision cost or something, if that's how it's going to work.
Exactly.
I like to think about that as a really good sign of things to come, because we're worried about cards being cut down in Homecoming, as a slight Homecoming aside. We're worried about cards being cut down in power and in number, what with Radovid going away and Dagon gone. It gives me heart to see that there's a lot of cards that we haven't even seen the art of showing up in Thronebreaker, and the idea that they could be modified to work with Live Gwent.
So there's one card in particular that I am most excited about from what I saw in the translation of, if this concept could work in Gwent, I want to see it. So we don't know a lot about orders, I guess, except for the fact that we know how they work, and that's if a unit has orders, it has a certain amount of those orders, charges, you might say, and you spend those charges on your turn if you're able to. So one of the cards named it's Reynard Odo, I think. His ability was to add charges to a unit that has the ability to receive charges, and I think that card is one of the most interesting ideas, because if that was in Gwent Homecoming, the PvP version of Gwent, that means that, assuming it's a Northern Realms card, I don't really know if it'll be neutral or Northern Realms. I can't imagine it would be anything else, because he seems to be, judging by the footage, a very close friend of Queen Maeve's. So it seems like that's going to be a Northern Realm card that adds charges. So if Northern Realms is a faction that has a lot of orders units, maybe more so than another faction, this card now has like a supreme amount of potential and could be a very, very good card. So I really like that concept of recharging a unit, giving extra value that way. So it depends on what orders you recharge, and the value could be variable based on what's on the board and what you're able to do. So I like that a lot, personally.
Yeah.
What about you? Did you see any mechanics or anything that surprised you or interested you that maybe you weren't expecting to see?
Really, it's the animations.
Yeah, the animations.
Really kind of blowing up for me. The animations in Live Gwent are underwhelming, and this is kind of like poke and target and stuff like that. I noticed that in Thronebreaker, the animations are extremely fast. They're also they pop, right? They're extremely bright compared to a dark board. So when cards take an action, it looks like it means something. Whereas right now, it's just kind of like point and shoot, like everything feels like an archer. Whereas in Thronebreaker, the cards look a lot more alive. And we're watching Thronebreaker without premium cards. And so I wonder if Thronebreaker has the ability to have premium cards. That'd be pretty sweet.
Well, we do know this one piece of information in that Thronebreaker is a standalone game. You do not need Thronebreaker to play Gwent. You do not need Thronebreaker to get the Gwent cards, but you will need Thronebreaker to get the premium 20 card set that comes with Thronebreaker.
Oh.
And apparently you don't get those premiums when you buy Thronebreaker. You find them within the game and they get added to your Gwent account. So that's kind of cool. Freemium premiums. But it's also cool that when you order Thronebreaker, you also get 5 premium kegs in Gwent, I think when Homecoming lands, which means that the kegs have all premium cards in them. Guys, you're already giving us so much, but it's fine. I mean, it brings value. Now, always never say that a price is too low. If you ever do a survey, never say that. But it basically is adding value to the $30 we're spending. $30, $38.99 in Canada, €20, I think it is. But Mythic Pilot in the chat. Mythic Pilot, one of the pioneers on the Gwent Discord and one of an old guard in Gwent, is saying that Burgess said that charge is a core mechanic for NR. He did say that. There's a lot of stuff on that Ask a Dev thread on the CD Projekt Red forums that is still daily updated with question and answer. Just bookmark that thread. There's a lot of information there.
It is important to note that CD Projekt Red does seem to be changing a significant amount of their feedback and interaction with the community from, Discord and Reddit as previously, and most of it is now happening on their official forums, which are pretty well moderated and everything. So, anyone who's into this Homecoming coming up and Thronebreaker, if you have questions or if you want to actually hear from a developer, looks like the forums are starting to become the go-to place.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: CD Projekt Red was always able to. CD Projekt Red and Gwent has been like a hardcore fan's dream game. If you were involved with Gwent in the very, very early closed beta, the community was much smaller. Everybody involved was picking apart every pixel that we knew about the game before it came out, and it got to a point where we had a special channel in the Discord where we had direct contact with the developers. And of course, they're very active on Reddit as well. So we have been able to be like very, very much in touch. And of course, you and I and others have a little bit more in touch than some others because we actually have a relationship with the people at CD Projekt Red. But just in general, just the amount of questions and answer that they do, like Berja specifically, a guy who already has 100 jobs, manages to find time to answer any question on the forums as well. So I really like that CD Projekt Red has always been a well of, if you ever like wanted to talk about something or get to know something more, they just give you a lot to talk about. I feel like at that time, it's been kind of silent lately. You even tweeted about it.
Yeah.
So you tweeted about it the other day. You said, we talked about, there's Artifact is coming out. I mean, we can just say it. I don't know if it's a dirty word or not. I know some card games are, but I'm just going to say that there's a lot of buzz around Artifact right now as CCG, as a CCG topic. It's worth mentioning. And you mentioned in your tweet, boy, there's a lot of talking about other games. CD Projekt Red going to be revamping Gwent. A little silent. I think the silence was broken today. Are you satisfied with this broken silence?
Yeah, at least as far as goes Thronebreaker, we still haven't heard much of anything about Homecoming. We're both very well aware of the Wink PTR, and nothing has been released about the PTR, at least officially. Nothing has been released officially about Homecoming changes. Everything's just been rustlings in the bushes. And I think that there'd be a way to really even, get a leg up on the competition by doubling down with the KFC-style double-sided Thronebreaker and Homecoming news.
Tasty
with a
sandwich.
nice Gwent sandwich. Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were some people that I saw today, some of the reactions were, I can't believe both this and Homecoming comes out on the same day. Like, damn.
Yeah.
Damn,
this has
like
been done for a long time.
What am I gonna do on that day is what people are saying. I mean, I'm probably playing PvP Gwent first, but like a lot of people are saying I'll play Thronebreaker while I watch people play Homecoming on stream. And I do like that Homecoming and Thronebreaker are these two very separate terms, and everybody understands what we mean when we say those two things. I am going to probably do 2 blocks a day for a bit. I don't know. I'm going to play a lot. I'm very, very, very excited after today. I'm riding high on kind of on the vibes right now. But I think that it comes out on the same day. That's going to be great. And I think that it's going to be great for Gwent. I think that Thronebreaker specifically is going to be fantastic for Gwent because if and I said this on the Discord before the podcast, if CD Projekt Red is expecting people to play this game on stream, which both of us will, and I'm sure many, many Gwent players will as well. But, you know, we've seen Kriparian play Gwent before as sponsored stream. We've seen, you know, Krip plays anything. But I mean, if you are to sponsor Gwent and sponsor Thronebreaker, and that's the kind of thing that is on Twitch, there are going to be people that see this game that have no idea Gwent even exists. They've never even heard of Gwent. Here's the thing. I like, a lot of people don't actually, believe it or not, we're in a bubble. There's a lot of people that don't know Gwent as a game at all. So you put this on a big stage and expose it, you probably will get tens to hundreds of thousands of people, depending on who is paid and who streams it, saying, this game looks awesome. Does this game have PvP? And then, you know, that's Gwent. Gwent is Thronebreaker PvP. So you have that option. So I think that it's going to be put on the stage, and that's going to be good. Oh, I see Kidboxer. Now he's not on the screen. He's not on the screen here. He's just off camera. Little family moment here for Greyboxer. But I mean, that's,
my son just got home.
There you go. Kidboxer on the podcast. How you doing, my man? Say hi.
Hi.
That's great. How you doing, my friend? How are you? How's baseball going?
You're doing a Gwent?
This is super live right now.
All right, no more kids on the podcast.
You're famous. All right, this is super, super live right now. Anyway, yeah, what I'm saying is you put this on that stage and you expose Gwent in this new form to people who are never seeing it, like who've never seen it before. That's pretty good. That's pretty good, right? And the other thing to talk about is also when you have a game like The Elder Scrolls Legends, that just got a revamp, and they got like their board. I mean, a lot changed for Elder Scrolls Legend, but the meme a meme that I saw on that Reddit was Elder Scrolls Legend revamp side by side. One like the board was like a different color, a slightly different shade of beige. And then Gwent side by side shows Gwent before the faction boards when it was a really basic wooden board. And then of course the Thronebreaker footage, like the revamp stuff. So one revamp to another, CD Projekt Red just kind of showing that their table scraps are full meals. IMO.
Yeah, I think that there's a big hunger out there for more than table scraps.
I think
right?
so. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's what's your time like, Greyboxer? Because we threw this together real fast. What's your time like?
I got as much time as you need, buddy.
Okay. Just making sure. I wasn't sure if that was a fan.
My boy just got home and was like, hey, what are you doing, Dad? And I was like, podcasting. He's like, what?
Do you remember
Opens
that?
the door,
Yeah.
walks in. Hey, guys, it's a podcast. I'm me.
You know what? Anybody else's kid? I don't think so. But in this case, it's okay.
He's like, doing a good podcast?
Yeah, the podcast. I remember when you used to do that. All right, so let's talk about a couple more things here with Thronebreaker. What was the other big piece of information? We talked about the 20 different endings. We talked about the price, talked about the premiums. Really?
Let's talk about how they lay out the stories, right?
Because the story.
You aren't really doing a lot of interaction with NPCs on the world map, I guess you could call it. Mm-hmm. It looks kind of like a world map. It's just the map. When you're walking around.
This is the worst.
But you seem to go into like separate little story modes, and they look like the storyboard portions of The Witcher 3. If you guys remember, whenever you'd finish up a mini storyline or something, it would say, wrapping up and the bloody baron went into the mountains and took care of his wife for the rest of time. You know? And it does kind of like that, where it's sort of just sort of listing what's happening, but then you get all the voice acting as well. So it's sort of a good melding of, I think, improving what we always liked as a way of presenting story in a quick way in The Witcher 3, but adding the depth of the voice acting.
Mm-hmm. Again, sorry for the people who are watching on the video. Sorry, I'm struggling with actually showing the footage of the videos. Skype recently changed it to make it very hard for OBS to capture, so I need to do browser capture. So I can't set up the video ahead of time, and it's just like skipping videos and going back to ads. And I feel like as far as a video version of this podcast, you guys aren't getting a lot out of it as far as the footage, but you have the links. You have the links, and I may actually just change the scene for a moment just so I can get the video started again, so we can switch back and I can show you guys what we're talking about.
Yeah, the IGN YouTube video is just riddled with ads. Mm-hmm. It's every time you try to change the timer on the video, it just hits you with an ad.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's that's the world, right? That's the world we live in. So I'm just gonna go to the
Like
title card
Cable
for a moment.
died.
Yeah, I know exactly. There's an ad.
YouTube better get smart.
So I do like. I mean, I think that the story stuff is really interesting. We talked about how like the Nilfgaardian reinforcements and how that sort of thing, like affects the story. And I think that that's probably okay. I got the video set up here. That's probably more or less what we want a Witcher story to be: dialogue options and consequences. And I think that we are getting that very, very much. And I think that the open world experience is very much alive here. This is actually the footage here with Shoop. If you're seeing this, did you get a chance to watch this particular battle on the IGN footage here with Shoop versus the Nilfgaardians? Because this was a real highlight for me watching this one.
I didn't get to watch this part of it. I watched the actual siege itself later.
Yeah, the siege is also a great moment. I mean, those are the two major moments. You get the war camp. You get to see what interactions are in your off time of the war camp and the interactions that happen on the overworld, the interactions that happen before the battles, and of course you get the Shoop encounter, the tutorial encounter, a monsters encounter, and a full-blown Nilfgaardian invasion encounter in these videos. So I think that's a lot to go on, and I can only imagine that that's just a fraction of the game. So there is that.
Have you figured out, McBeard, just from what you've seen, when these stories take place? Because there's a couple of notes that I wanted to make that I wasn't necessarily expecting.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we know this is before the second... Wait, this is before a Nilfgaardian war, but not the one at the end of Witcher 2. So this is a precursor to the Witcher 1, if I'm not mistaken. Yes.
Based on everything I've seen, this is a precursor to Witcher 1, based on the positioning of Queen Maeve and her scar and the rest of it. So I think that we're dealing with a between the end of the books and Witcher 1 sort of thing. So this is going to bridge the gap in between the books in the series, which heretofore we have not had. And I can't believe I just said heretofore on a freaking podcast. Mm-hmm. I'm a little rusty, my friend. Number two, I wasn't expecting to spend the entire game playing as Queen Maeve.
Well, I mean, that's cool, right? I think that the other thing is Geralt is in the artwork and so is Bruver. So we're going to see some classic Gwent people. Of course, Geralt is the Witcher. So him being in the game is it's important. And also Queen Maeve does have dealings with Geralt as far as lore wise. This is not this wouldn't be a shoehorned in cameo, right? There would be an expectation that Maeve and Geralt have a relationship of some kind.
Well, that is played out in the spoilers of the books, so don't worry about that.
Which we will not do for you. So
we're not going to spoil those, but I will say that's how it's developed. So read. There is also an explanation for maybe why we don't get to play as Geralt that also is contained in the books. So there's a lot that you could gain, McBeard, personally from reading. And do you think that you could potentially read all the books in time for Thronebreaker?
Absolutely not. I maybe might be able to finish Blood and Wine, but absolutely not. But from what I understand, I mean, what I know about The Witcher, and this isn't like a huge spoiler, it's kind of a background thing about Geralt, is that Geralt in the games has lost his memory due to a stint in his life that he rode with a certain group of riders under a certain king that is a wild person. You know, he's just wildly hunting all sorts of things. So
heck of a guy.
You know that there is a point in Geralt's life where he is with the Red Riders, and he loses his memory, and you get a lot of that in The Witcher. You get a little bit of that in Witcher 2. I never played Witcher 1. I'm unapologetic about it. It was a long time ago. I did not have a computer. I love Witcher 2, but I never played Witcher 1. But as far as Geralt's memory, I've seen clips of him talking to Triss and being like, "Sorry, babe, I just don't quite remember you." But Vesemir and Lambert and Eskel, they're all in it, mainstays of the Witcher universe. But it would be interesting maybe if Geralt's not in it. What is Geralt doing? Where is he going? When does he come back? What does he know? Does he know Maeve? Does he remember? Very interesting. I mean, it's about Maeve, but the Geralt appearance, should it be true and not teased, it's very eyebrow raising, I think.
Yeah. I wanted to say that I'm going to nerd out for a minute. And one of the reasons I'm super excited about Thronebreaker is because when I was a kid, I owned a Game Boy Color. And Game Boy Color had a couple of Pokemon games on it that were pretty sick if you were like 11. And
I have one in this box.
there was
over
also a trading card game that was involved at this time that you played physically.
here. Yeah.
But listen, I was 11, didn't have a lot of money, and so I didn't buy all the cards. I didn't have very many cards, and one way to get a lot of the cards was to actually play the Pokemon trading card game. And
Now
that was
Mogwai
out
played
for
that,
game.
by the way, right? Mogwai started
Did he?
YouTube. I think he played that game. He was
Oh my
he played
God.
some sort of digital Pokemon thing. Is what he started.
They
his
do
channel.
have Pokemon is also digital right now.
Yeah.
But this was literally the Pokemon RPG card game. So you would go through the game as if it was the regular Pokemon RPG, and then you would collect the cards and do card combat.
So
And
you don't
it's-
actually collect monsters, you collect cards. So the game
Correct.
takes place
Yeah,
in
yeah.
like the real world where there are no Pokemon. Unfortunately, of course, Pokemon Go gets us as close as we can, but I'll never own a Bulbasaur, and I think about it every night. But I like
Yeah, I
that.
never got-
It's so meta, right? The Pokemon card game.
Yeah. Well, like, why didn't they remake it? But anyway, since they never did, it brings me back to being like 11 or 12 and playing that Game Boy game,
Mhm.
and playing a grown-up version of this with basically one of my favorite storylines in both reading, and gaming, and having it as the card game that I love.
Mhm.
So this game is mega for me personally, not only because of it being all these things that I'm super interested in, but it's also a huge nostalgia hit for me. So shout out to anybody who's actually played the Pokemon trading card game, because I think Thronebreaker is for you.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely. It's kind of funny to think about it like that. It's like saying Magic the Gathering Arena is the Magic the Gathering card game, the game. Because that is kind of what it is. By the way, this podcast easily is the podcast where we've mentioned more other non-Gwent games than any other podcast. I think I've mentioned like every single card game I've ever played.
I'm on the podcast.
And you're on the podcast. So yeah, it's exactly right. So I mean,
don't play any other card games.
I mean, I like. There is one thing we haven't talked about. Well, first of all, before I forget to say this, before it gets too late, I just want to say that this episode of Commander's Horn is recorded live on my channel at twitch.tv/McBearded. And we are recording with Greyboxer, episode 94. We record on Thursdays, and that didn't change today, even though I thought it did. And this episode is brought to you by Greyboxer's Throne Repair. If your throne is broken, I know a guy. But actually, this episode is brought to us by the
Commando!
our patrons at patreon.com/Commander's Horn. Thanks for supporting the show and keeping the mic on and the podcast ad-free. But going back to Thronebreaker, how about this Lyrian banner? Because this appears to be a new card type that I wouldn't have really thought too much about if we didn't see a preview of the Iris card during Gwent Challenger 4 that had the effect of destroying an artifact. So what's an artifact? Well, it appears that the Lyrian banner looks like it could actually be an artifact card. Instead of a power strength number, it has a chalice icon. Special cards now have the old Gwent Flame special icon, which is an oldie but a goodie. But this one has a new icon. So whereas we were given items as a new card type in Gwent in Midwinter, but it really wasn't a new card type. It was just another kind of special card. It seems like this is actually a different kind of card. It is a card that you place on the board that does not have a strength value, but has a persistent effect or an ongoing effect, or perhaps a triggerable effect. We can imagine that this isn't the only artifact. So now we finally have 0-point cards, like throwback to Witcher 3 Decoy, the 0-point card on the board that was also a spell and an item or whatever. I mean, it did, it did the broken thing that it did, brought a card back into your hand, but it was a 0-point card on the board. And we have never had a 0-point unit before because previously 0-point units are dead. That's how you know a unit isn't alive anymore. It has 0 strength. So we have this new card type. So just generally, after playing Gwent for years, Greyboxer, what is it like to have this finally a new card type to actually kind of think about and build around? What about an artifact-based archetype? What if that's there it is right there, Lyria Trophy on that loading screen there on the video here. So
Yeah,
I love this. I mean, this opens up a whole bunch of new things, cards that interact with artifacts, a deck, perhaps a faction that maybe supports artifacts, although I hope that artifacts are more widespread, but we'll see. But I like it a lot. I think that there's a lot of really cool interactions that you can have with this whole new card type. Yeah,
I think that what they've displayed is what an artifact is. this resilient Lyrian banner, which gives a a boon to your allies. I didn't finish reading it before the screen went away. Do you remember what it did?
I mean, it's the concept of it mostly that I'm interested in, and I actually forget what it does exactly because since Meave has it in every single fight, it's kind of like it's just always there on the board. It's resilient, which is represented by a small kind of like a rook type castle with like tower with ramparts icon. And there's that. But it's not really clear what it does. And I also don't think that in Homecoming PvP Gwent, we're going to get any card that starts on the board. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe we will. But it seems weird to be able to go first and have a card you can immediately interact with. Because I think that when the game added things like orders, like you play the card and then next turn you can do its ability, that change in general supports going first more. Yeah. Because it means that I can play my card first and I'm the first person to actually being able to enact the order. And I can also use that order to react to what the opponent is playing. Whereas in current Gwent, it's very rare for me to go first and be able to react to anything like a Dwarven Skirmisher, let's say, or a Tuisark Hunter. It's not going to be able to hit anything because there's nothing there. So I'm penalized twice by going first in current Gwent. It seems like that's a little bit more lenient, and definitely this type of ability is more fashioned towards a balanced coin flip. In general, little things, extra mulligans, orders, I think, making more proactive plays much, much more proactive, and don't have to be proactive plays to be good. They can be good anytime, but especially to be proactive. And then ultimately, this coin flip flicks that we're going to see, I mean, if we were seeing in tournaments the coin deciding percentage-wise, you're not going to get it perfect, but you want it to be like 55, I think. Are you comfortable with? There's probably more analyst-centric people that maybe know what a competitive card game can survive with. I think Gwent can survive as is. I mean, people have learned to kind of deal with the system, which I don't think is okay, but I think that competitively we're seeing very close competition despite the coin. But I think that in the future, it's going to be much better for that. It's going to be less about who goes first, I think.
55! Sorry, I had to sing that.
Oh, the 55 song. I'm not familiar.
So you get it. Good.
I know 55 only, not 55.
All right, so here's the deal. I think that getting back to the original question, which was what do I think of artifact type cards, McBeard, before you went on your tangent. I think that artifact type cards, if they're resilient, especially if a few of them are resilient, and if you can build a deck around them, they look like the kind of cards that they're like an engine that doesn't require synergy or something like that. Or maybe they do have synergy. We don't really know. But in any event, they're kind of like a turret, right? Right. They're going to sit on the board and they're going to basically attract attention. And they're going to either cause damage, or they're going to give buffs or do something that's super annoying to your opponent, and your opponent's going to target them. Yeah. And we've seen card types that target this sort of thing. And so what I hope it doesn't become is, I sure hope you put cards in your deck that are destroy a turret. I mean, destroy an artifact, because it's going to be not fun. Like I remember there was, some friends of mine play a lot of Overwatch, and there was some problems in the earlier days of turrets in Overwatch. And
strange comparison, but I get it. I know what you mean.
Yeah. It's just like trying to bring it all together. Yeah. It's hard to say, what we're going to see in terms of dealing with artifacts. But from what I've seen, it looks like artifacts, if they're not easily removable, they can become a big problem, and you don't want it to be, check yes if you have check the box if you have the removal, and therefore you can win. I don't think that's very fun, but there's a lot that's going to be changing in Homecoming, and at this point we don't know a lot about it still.
I mean, I think that one of the things that I remember I can't remember who I was talking to, but it was somebody at CD Projekt Red, and the general idea of what we were talking about was designing cards with Alzur's Thunder in the game. So Alzur's Thunder is in the game, it does 9 damage. That means that every single card that is made is in that range or not, and is that okay or not? And we see cards like Redanian Night Elect being boosted by Full Test, being out of Thunder range, being on a huge, huge, huge deal for that deck. So engines being outside of the reach of Thunder have always been the cards that have you gravitate towards them, because there's engines that are not going to be removed before their effect, that can be repaired and fixed and healed. And then your removal starts to become kind of lame. With the orders, that means that a unit doesn't really get value until you can act again. So that's good. And that also caters an environment where countering a strategy is more, you don't feel like like I've played against Consume a lot where I had the counters, but I didn't have enough counters. You know how frustrating that is? When you're like, boom, I got you. Take that. Ooh, Mandrake, no problem. Oh, I still lost by 30 points somehow. Or even lost by a couple points or lost at all. So being able to have counters that are more effective is good. And when you design a card to be within a range or without a range, you always are thinking about, well, if this card is something that can be powerful, what is the counterplay to that? So you can't make artifacts without making a destroy artifact card. However, how that's implemented is in a neutral card that destroys an artifact. How much strength you put on your board when you destroy the artifact. Does that matter by faction? Does every faction have an artifact destroying card? These are the territories that we will explore when the game hits Homecoming. And I think it puts me in a state that I feel like I haven't really felt like since Gwent was in before closed beta, when we were just kind of hypothesizing what the game could be like. How is it that 2 years later, when we've been playing it so much, that I feel like I still have no idea what they're going to throw at me? I'm still guessing. It puts a smile on my face a little bit.
Yeah, but then you realize that this is going to be the full release of the game and no one's played it. And so they've had old Gwent now, we can call it. I guess we can call it old Gwent. For 2 years now, and they're going to release it on more or less the 2-year anniversary of the closed beta launching.
2 days.
And it's going to be radically transformed and have not been tested at all. And I really am concerned about Homecoming releasing as, hey, this is our final version of the game. By the way, we had a 2-year beta, which was basically not relevant.
I mean, to say it's not relevant is like a real stretch. I think I know what you mean. I know what you mean because the fundamental changes to Gwent are vast. But I think that they learned a lot. I mean, I'm sure they went from having 0 multiplayer data to having 2 years worth of multiplayer data. So that's one thing. They also went from 0 minutes of design experience around a card game for a card game like that can be competitive. To having 2 years worth of experience for that kind of thing. So there's a lot to be said based on basically, even their patch process, their workflow, getting art, like the pipeline, just basically everything coming together. Like all of this stuff leads me to believe that I'm not going to say that it's going to come out of the box balanced. I mean, let's be real here. It probably is not. There's going to be something that, I mean, we're hopefully, should there be an open PTR soon, and I hope there is because I really want to play. And if it's an open PTR, I want to play for everybody who's watching as well. But hopefully I want to catch some really bad stuff. I want to play some stuff that feels just so grossly overpowered, and I want to be like, good, we got it. At least this isn't going to be in the game. What I don't want is for us to feel like we figured out a game that I'm still exploring current Gwent. I'm actually still exploring the game as it stands right now. Now, granted, I'm not level 100, which means I've only got a pitiful 3,000 hours into the game, but I'm not level 100. Most of those hours are beta hours before the reset of levels, so I probably would be. But I'm still exploring it. And if they keep changing things, the exploration is unlimited, really, because, we're always going to be exploring new metas and new ways to do things. And I mean, metas are still going to shift and balance changes are going to happen even if it's closely balanced. If stuff is overplayed, you'll change it. From like play rates are important too, because play rates dictate what is popular without people complaining about it. So there's that kind of data reading and that kind of understanding of where to balance things is important. And I think that with a revamp, you can apply all of your knowledge at once, not piecemeal in expansions and new cards. And I like that as well. The Hearthstone philosophy was always add cards to deal with problems, not change cards, even though they've changed lots of cards and they've kind of changed that philosophy over the years to change a lot of stuff. I think that starting with a new foundation before even taking an approach like that is there's just so many opportunities, especially when you add the new stat like the deck building. And we got to see the deck builder with the provision system, the little hot cross bun there. I like that a lot. I like the provision system. Greyboxer, how much have you been following on the provision system? Do you know a lot about that? As far as
that's a silly question, McBeard. Yes,
of course. I mean, is it a silly question? I mean, I don't think it's. I just want to make sure because I don't want to patronize and explain it to you.
I'm going to clue in the commander's horn, listeners, just a touch, and don't be afraid, McBeard. McBeard is very anxious about talking sometimes about things that are under NDA. I am less anxious. We are aware of the provision system. We've seen every single leak that is out there. We are aware of 100% of any public knowledge regarding the PTR. So yes, the provision system. I brought it up earlier because I thought it'd be a cool way to make some of these Thronebreaker cards work. Just make them expensive, right?
Yeah. Make them strong, make them
uh,
expensive. That's kind of like the idea, right?
Yeah, and it gives the developers sort of a two-way. Okay, let me say one thing first, and then I'll get back to provisions.
Sure.
Number one, I think there's something to be said in the value of Hearthstone not really changing its cards very often, and then not having to go back and rework everything. For Gwent, are we on our 4th or 5th edition of several different cards? I mean, maybe. At this point, we are on several different versions of Aromancy /
Aromancer,
Vankamar, whatever his name is now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm kind of tired of this. I'm sick of it. Stick with a card design and stop changing it. If you don't like the way it's balanced, then fix it. So I think provision systems gives them a way out. It gives them an outlet, a release valve for some of the extra power on these cards.
Such a good point.
Where something's super powerful, then all you do is you turn up the provisions on it, and you can still include it, but it's going to cost you.
Yeah, I mean, like, let's say Alzur's Thunder is a 9 strength card. Or sorry, Alzur's Thunder is a 9 damage special card, and let's say, just for the sake of argument, that it costs 9 provisions, so like 9 for 9. It probably doesn't, but let's just say. So now it's a 9. It's a card that does 9 damage, so it's a removal for all units that are at 9. But it costs you 9 provisions to put in your deck. So depending on how many provisions you get, that could be a lot or not a lot. But if you were to say that Alzur's Thunder is now now it does 10 damage, but now the provision cost is even higher than it was before, is that a buff or a nerf? So it's kind of an interesting way of looking at that equation. So you can actually stick with the design. You made a really good point though. You stick with the design, and if it's too strong, you just make it cost more. And if you make it cost more, you make it more powerful, but that still affects you. Even if you make it cost more and make it more powerful to reflect the added cost of it, it still actually affects how good the deck is that you can put it in, because it affects everything else that you put in the deck, because it affects your salary cap, kind of thing. So I just really like it, because I feel like they're creating a foundation that just allows for, like you said, tweaks to be put in with a little bit less huge sweeping changes, because I as well am very tired of cards changing. It's an exhausting mental exercise to go from, like, what is the most change card? I'm going to throw this one out to the chat as well. What would you say the most change card is? The card that has seen the most different iterations, like completely different iterations. I feel like there's an obvious one. I know that like Foglet got nailed so many times, but it kind of always did the same thing though. But Foglet's been changed so many times. But I don't know if I would count that really. David Rodriguez Jr. says Harpy, and Harpy is a big one. Harpy has seen
Priscilla here.
Priscilla is that's maybe the biggest. That's a huge one. That she went from a silver to a gold. She's done a different thing in every patch. Priscilla. Letho. Letho always destroyed stuff on the opponent's side of the board, locked it up and banished it and stuff. So that's kind of close. But I think that Priscilla, I think, is without a doubt the one. Right? Priscilla used to be a positive Dijkstra, which was a nutty thing to think of, and then went up to a unit that had a timer that buffed every turn on a timer, and then became a gold card that just buffed 5 units on the board, like old John Tallis style. And who knows what she does? Dandelion? Yeah, Dandelion changed a bit too. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think that Priscilla is the one, and I think that you tune it, you tune the cards a little bit better, and I hope that there are less changes and more moving forward, less circles, right? Less moving in circles.
I think there's, we had a really good discussion about this provision system and what you're able to do with it when it comes to balancing on the Commander's Horn Discord. And it wasn't too long ago. It was a week ago. That's true. Just to sort of reiterate my points there, like I want to give you an example of how you can use provisions, right? Because a provision system can force cards that are problematic in or out on a cycle of a patch based on the balancing. So it doesn't force them out per se, because you can just make them more expensive. You can just basically alter the other cards in your deck to fit provisions. For example, if Great Swords on current patch were dropped to 4 base strength, would anybody ever play them?
Probably not, because everything in the game could remove them.
Right. But if you increase their provisions, then you can force your way into making that deck work by inventing new cards, or basically inventing new synergies, or as the player making the choice, what's worth including based on the provision costs that you now have to deal with. So it doesn't force you off of a deck that's meta, that's powerful. It forces you to rebalance the surrounding fixtures in your deck. And I think that is a point that hopefully we're able to use in saying, hey, this is overpowered, make it more expensive. Hey, this is actually overpowered no matter what the cost is. You got to nerf it.
Yeah.
I think we're going to see a lot more changes based on provisions and a lot less changes based on what does a card do.
Yeah, and I hope that's the case. David Rodriguez Jr. in the chat putting in some research. This is hilarious. Priscilla and Harpy, I think basic Harpy. Priscilla and Harpy have had 7 different versions from closed beta to now. I don't know, David Rodriguez Jr., if you're counting the Gwent DB preview of what cards did, and then ultimately those cards maybe didn't do that. So that might be one version of it that we're not thinking of. But the fact that Priscilla even has 6 different versions is like pretty crazy. So, wow. I mean, that's great. This is a great link to the Gwent wiki about Priscilla. I'll try to make sure to get that link. I'm going to open it up on my laptop to make sure that I don't forget to put that in the show notes. But I imagine that it shows you all the different versions of it. Yeah, Gwent update on the 19th of December, 2017, August 29th, June 20th, May 24th, March 23rd, December 2nd, 2016, November 15th, 2016. That's absolutely hilarious. And the original version was Priscilla, silver card, 2 strength. Priscilla now draws 2 revealed cards, and a player chooses which one to play. No, that was the first change. Because he originally played 2. And then you picked one, and then Priscilla was strength with nerfed, and now she drew one face down, and then it's just crazy how many different ways that they tried to make that card work.
She was hit repeatedly
over and over again.
It was bad. I mean, basically.
So good to read that.
Who's the jerk that beat her up? The doctor, right? In the game.
I actually didn't do that side quest.
So.
But it wasn't Hubert.
There's a side quest involving Priscilla, and she ends up getting. I don't know. She gets repeatedly, or she doesn't get repeatedly hurt. She gets basically beat within an inch of her life.
Okay, that's not good.
So
Priscilla.
I don't remember who did it. I honestly don't recall who was to blame for this.
Who did it? You tell me who did it. But does that relate to the Hubert quest? Something like you think it's one person who did it, but it's another person who did it, and it's Hubert or something. It is Hubert.
It's one of those,
it looks like it is Hubert. Okay, so Hubert in his card art is looking at Priscilla, and you know that he has bad plans for Priscilla in that particular thing. So Hubert, not a nice guy, you might say. But
Hubert wrecked, yeah.
So, I mean, the point we're trying to make here is that Gwent moving forward requires these cards to be more or less set in stone as far as their effects. From there, we balance, but I don't think we need to bring up the Wild Hunt Hound and change it again so it's more interesting. If it ends up being a card that's just kind of like, a 3 provision card that has a very basic effect, all right, that's what Wild Hunt Hound does. Let's make a new card now to do something else, a stronger card that does kind of the same thing. But just simply as changing cards instead of adding cards, it's not progressive. So it's time to get Gwent back on track. I think that Homecoming is prepared to do that. And Thronebreaker is going to give Gwent a huge boost that generally, look at any other card game that released single player content. It was not like this. It was just not even close to this. It was like what you said before. I wouldn't have paid $30 for old Gwent with a single player mode that just looked like old Gwent. No.
Yeah.
But I mean, in other card games, you are paying not $30, but you're paying money dollars to get a single player version of a game that is more or less unchanged, just has special rules in it. This is not that. This is a full-fledged RPG strategy RPG. So I like that very, very much. And it's time, apparently there's been this new expansion based on Blood and Wine that was going to come out, and then it's not coming out because Thronebreaker. So, man, we get cards like Devil Driven is saying in the chat right now. Shout out Devil Driven. Wanting Dettlaff, wanting that Toussaint expansion of some kind. So getting those vampires in action. We've heard a lot about what this could be. We had this a year ago. The Salvine patch dropped. We were against a younger Regis, a more bloodthirsty Regis, and his Queen of the Night, which is art that we still haven't seen, and his Garcanes, which we still haven't seen.
Yeah.
There's so much art that has been in Gwent a year ago that still aren't cards yet, that have probably been waiting for expansions to come out. I just want to go forward from here. We've been still for too long. I'm bursting at the seams to play.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the cards that we expected to see with Homecoming that are, like we talked about the vampires, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if every single vampire in Gwent is not in Homecoming.
Oh, I don't think they're going to be. No, not in Homecoming.
Because they're planning it, you know, and And like I think that the same goes maybe for some of these other cards that are missing, right? Is a lot of them seem to be from the same region of the world, and it would, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if they package those together later with a lot of new cards. And especially seeing, like I said, seeing the Rivian cards, or the Lyrian cards rather,
Yeah.
was really interesting in Thronebreaker, because this is card art we haven't seen yet with abilities that aren't on live cards. So again, I wouldn't be surprised to see a group of cards that comes out, maybe as an expansion, maybe as just something else, whether it's with Thronebreaker or not.
I mean, there was the dreaded art leak that I don't even like, the fact that there was an art leak, because I know that was, it wasn't well received by CD Projekt Red, data mining and that kind of stuff. I mean, it happens to games. It happens to almost every single game that is ever released.
Yeah.
But there was an art leak that showed lots of cards that we haven't seen yet as far as artwork, and I don't think all of them were necessarily Thronebreaker related. I reviewed them actually before the podcast, and the Manticore 6 card was actually in that art leak, and I didn't see it before then. I don't look at it very often, but a lot of the cards that we see, like the Lyrian Scytheman and the Rivian Arbalest, or the Brigade, although like a lot of that stuff was in there. But then there was stuff like the Barghest. The Barghest is like a demon ghost hound, and that was in Blood and Wine, very specifically. Arcaspore was also in Blood and Wine, but yet we have it in current Gwent. So when these things will appear, it's probably not entirely sure. But
McBeard.
Well, what?
Barghest was like one of the main enemies in the first chapter of Witcher 1.
Well, then I don't know anything then. Yeah, I mean, I don't know anything about Salamandra. I don't know anything about, I know the Frightener was one of the first encounters. I know a few things about Witcher 1. But the Barghests, I only saw them for the first time in Witcher 3. So there you go.
Yeah.
Same with Shani, only saw it for the first time in Witcher 3. But I like the idea, yeah. You talk about Toussaint, you talk about that region, and you talk about an expansion. So you got Witcher 3, Game of the Year 2015, Blood and Wine expansion of the year 2017, I think it was. And then you have, look at Elder Scrolls Legend released their Skyrim expansion. And now I don't really follow that game very well, but I imagine it was well received because Skyrim is one of the most beloved games in that series. So when you look at Gwent, if their first expansion is going to be like the Blood and Wine expansion, let's say, that's like a big brand name to attach to it. That's not just like Adventures in Kovir. Like, it's not like something that's like a little bit more bland to somebody who's interested in the Witcher universe but maybe hasn't explored it. Thronebreaker is going to give you a lot of that. But the first expansion should give us what we really want. We want Dettlaff. We want vampires. We want crazy. I don't know what the other factions would really get there. Spotted whites. We want spotted whites and spoons, and we want that stuff. And the idea that it's been ready for a long time and we just can't have it yet is. I want it, man. It's been a while. Blizzle is hyped for Kovir apparently. So
who's the rock tumbler in Blood and Wine? That is part of the arena quest.
I didn't. You know what? I actually haven't gotten around to the arena side quest in Blood and Wine because I could not stand that mounted combat, like crossbow into the targets and like slicing the training dummies. I just hated that quest.
Yeah.
So I never like got ahead of that quest there.
It's not easy. No, it's not.
Shaelmar. That's what it is.
Shaelmar.
The Shaelmar is what it is. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about Shaelmar.
Yeah,
Sorry, I thought you were talking about something else. Yeah, you get Shaelmar. Brandy, I see you.
Yep,
she's hiding. She's hiding. So, okay. The Shaelmar would be something that monsters would get probably in that expansion. But what do you put for Northern Realms in an expansion that does not take place at all in any Northern Realm whatsoever? So south of the border.
Just cut half of the cards out.
Yeah, you just kind of have to like imagine what they might be putting in there. So you'd think that they maybe want to create storyline for Northern Realms in a Toussaint expansion, or create a storyline for Skellige in a Toussaint expansion, an expansion that has no ties to Blood and Wine aside from the fact that Skellige was an added expansion in the in-game Wild Hunt Gwent. But that was like all Skellige had a part of in Blood and Wine. So. But it looks like all the factions are represented in Thronebreaker. We saw a Nilfgaardian battle. We know that like Mahakam is going to be it based on the screenshots. We've seen the monster battle. Skellige remains to be seen if it's actually going to be in Thronebreaker. But I mean, I think if they're going to be including all the factions but Skellige, that would be weird. For the midnight, nah, you need your boats, right? Boats and boats.
We'd have a damn problem.
Yes, we would. Oh man.
So mad. Oh, dude.
This is going to be so much to do.
No, they could not do that to us.
No, you got to have.
Even though I agreed with those dwarves in Blood and Wine. with the Skellige expansion.
Keep our hands off our Gwent.
Hands off our Gwent.
No more bloody factions.
Yeah.
I mean, that meme was great when Nilfgaard was coming out, but now it's like, no, really, take your hands off Gwent. Like, stop changing it. I like that. That's Gwent in a lot of ways is the most meta card game ever. I think it's just so. I mean, you've got the developers and the cards. You've got Gwent in Witcher. You've got actual Gwent changing. You've got Gwent as a card game that is no longer a card game in an actual battle. People aren't playing it anymore. It's just so meta and inside out, and I love every second of it. Greyboxer, we have been live for an hour and 20 minutes, my friend, and I think we've talked a lot about Thronebreaker. Want to throw it over to the chat. If you guys have any questions about what you saw on the Witcher, the Witcher.com official site about Thronebreaker, what you saw in the gameplay footage that was released by the media today, or what you saw on my stream or any other stream that was talking about it, would love to know what you think. We're just going to take a short breather to see. Well, I don't have a scene for it, so I'll play the break, but we're going to sit here awkwardly and dance. Once again, I would like to thank our commandos. Our patrons at patreon.com/CommandersHorn. Thanks once again for keeping the podcast ad-free. Patreon is also hitting a little bit of a homecoming. I've already started some of those perks, starting at a low cost of $1 on the bronze tier. Not only do you get the podcast in your email every week, plus access to the Commanders Horn Discord, but you also get a weekly newsletter that I've been writing every Monday. Right now, it's all Gwent events, all 16 Gwent events that I have casted, ranked as far as how much I enjoyed them, how well they were received, the general atmosphere, my points of view. So I did 16-9 last week, and I did 8-1 this week, and I'm likely going to be posting it on Reddit this weekend because it took me like 10 hours to write the whole thing, so I kind of want to share. But you guys get a first look at it. I'm really happy about it. It seems like you guys really thought it was well received. Bonus videos, of course, coming up, but that is all going to be coming up. I've been working with David Rodriguez Jr. in the chat for some graphics. Been talking to Thrilling a little bit about what we might be able to do for the podcast. We got all hands on deck for throne crumbing, my friends, and I am here as well every day streaming Gwent starting this week. Greyboxer on the podcast. It's just a total throwback week at the same time as being a whole bunch of new stuff. This has been a really transformative week, I think, for me, just kind of following this game. Somehow 2 years later, it's still like that. What are you guys saying in the chat?
Extremely pumped for Homebreaker.
Homebreaker.
The Witcher card Gwent game.
The Witcher Throne coming. Yes. I mean, a lot of the questions, a lot of the greatest comments I thought in the chat were happening during our actual podcast. Stuff about there was some premium cards shown. Apparently, you can go back to the footage and check it out. Thrilling is going to take off work. Oh no! Yeah. Thrilling has jury duty the day before Throne Crumbing and Homebreaker drops. So, talk about going from a bad day to a good day. Oh man, that is some good stuff. Good stuff.
It's no good when you've got something planned that's great and then you get hit with the summon.
Blizzle is saying that we get to beat up one of Meave's son in Blood and Wine. Now, I haven't done that, but I'm going to try to find that quest. That's something. I'll try to get that quest done before Thronebreaker because any ties to Thronebreaker. Meave's son. I wonder if that character might
probably a Jagoff, right? He's like, I am.
Yeah, I know, like Damien, who I actually think I gave all like the most negative dialogue options to Damien, like screw you, I don't care about you, shut up, don't tell me what to do. And then like now later on in the story, I feel bad that I was so mean to him because he's like, hey, some of the guards and I are going out for drinks later, and I'm like, oh, I kind of told you were a dick earlier. I hope you're over it. We can be dudes about this.
Mythic wants to know what we think about the upgraded cards in Thronebreaker.
Upgraded in what way? Oh, you know what you're talking about? This is actually really good. Now, if I switch over to the browser, am I going to see an ad or not? Let's see. Because I've been having this running. Yes, I'm going to see something completely different. That shouldn't be there. So that is a different thing. That is the next thing on my watch later playlist, which is Carl Sagan 42 playing Mario Maker, and it's very funny. But that's a game I never play. It's a game. You know, I just gave you so much stuff. There's so much stuff on the video version of this podcast that is going to be unedited gloriousness that is really going to show how thrown coming together, this podcast was. But you know what? I think that a very casual chat with Greyboxer about how hyped we are about this new Witcher game is exactly what I wanted. It's exactly what I got. It's exactly what you got. So I'm happy. Crozier showing up. Crozier, very, very, very high ranked player. Saw a German review that featured some Gwent battles we haven't heard about yet in the English videos, but I'm almost afraid of spoiling too much at this point. Well, when I showed the IGN video, I said, spoiler alert, we're going to watch the first 24 minutes. I would say that if you want to know how good the game is, you should watch the trailer, because all it does is show you how the battles work and like some early decisions. I feel like it's almost worth it to watch it and still be excited, personally.
I would watch the in-depth IGN video if I had to, if I had to choose if I'm going to sit through 5 minutes of Spider-Man commercials, I would pick the longest video.
I think that you get to see a good scope of what the game is, and I don't think none of it's really spoiled at all. But
no.
Yeah. Check it out if you haven't checked it out. Link will be in the show notes. The link will also be to the Ask a Dev forum post, and I will also get a link to that wiki for Priscilla of all of her changes, being probably the most changed card in all of Gwent. We talked about that stuff. So, Greyboxer, is there anything else that we want to say? I think we might be wrapping this one up here at a tidy
I just want to shout out again to the Commandos.
I never get tired of hearing that.
Really, because it's like one of the best ways to support the show is on Patreon, and this is what keeps the show going.
Mm-hmm.
We really do this show, and by we I mean McBeard. McBeard does a show for you guys, the patrons, the Commandos, and I think that cannot be understated. You don't get a lot of behind the scenes if you're just hanging out there listening. But if you're a patron, then you get access to the Discord. You get to see what we're talking about before the show goes on. You get to see all, basically exclusive access to McBeard and a number of pretty sweet Gwent dudes. So if you're stuck, in the desert of a very, very crowded Discord server, of which I am a moderator and am often imitating Radovid, it might be something for you.
By banning people or by poking people's eyes out?
But specifically, the new things that McBeard's doing on the Patreon are great. So he's giving you, he's putting a lot of time in to give you an inside look at what is the life of McBeard.
You're too kind, Greyboxer. You don't have to do that. That's very kind of you to do that.
Stop being Canadian.
I'm more excited about buy my stuff. I'm more excited about being able to actually move forward with content, because even though I took a break, I didn't really take a break from the podcast. I took a break from the podcast in August, I think, for a week, but I took a break from streaming, but not the podcast. So the podcast has been the only content I've been putting out for about 4 straight weeks, excluding this week. So I am excited to get back into talking about that stuff. So right now, what I'm doing on YouTube, I am revisiting my old favorite decks, Ciri Mulligan Dash and King Eridan's Endless Fleet, Necker Warrior Drakkar, and, the Legend of 3-board, discard Skellige Bran, Ciri Dash, and that one too. Some of my favorite brews, my really, really all-time favorite brews. And that's been a lot of fun. And I am going to miss some things, I think, but hopefully everything is good in the future. DG Thunder, I'm going to give a shout out as a solid commando here, because he's doing the 18-month resub on my stream here, where we're posting this from. But I think we're going to wrap it up. Greyboxer, you're out there on Twitter, and you're the moderator of the Discord, but you're going to be streaming Thronebreaker. Is that right?
Yeah. So probably on launch day or evening of launch day, simply because I am NA. So it's going to be, after midnight for you folks in Europe. But so I'm going to plan on streaming almost, I don't know if I'm going to stream my entire first playthrough of Thronebreaker or what, but I will be back to streaming for that.
Cool.
Got myself all set up for everything.
That's exciting. And this is the guy you want to watch too, because you are the RPG guy. You're a Soulsborne, Witcher 3, huge super fan of RPG, so this kind of stuff is right up your alley. Even if it's not quite, the sword combat that you love.
Oh, it's fine.
But it's the Gwent combat
it's
you
Witcher
also
lore.
love.
It's what happened with Queen Maeve after the series of events in the books, and knowing sort of maybe what's CD Projekt Red's take of some of the precursors to the Second Nilfgaardian War. A lot of questions are going to be answered. So I'm really pumped to get into this story.
Yeah, me too. So Greyboxer, where can people find you out there in the internet world?
You can find me on Twitter at the Greyboxer. You can also find me on the Commandos Patreon Discord.
The command, yeah, it's true. Greyboxer is very active. If you miss Greyboxer, he's super active on Discord, so you can always chat with him there. I can be found at McBearded. You are watching the podcast on my channel right now. I am also at youtube.com/c/McBeard. Check out the videos and subscribe if you like. That would be great. There's so much support I get just from people clicking buttons on that page, so I really appreciate your support there. The growth there has been good too, and the feedback from me coming back to YouTube has been pretty awesome as well, so thanks everybody there. And finally, follow me on Twitter for all updates on the podcast, on Gwent Masters, everything I'm up to at McBeardCH. I think that's it, guys. I think we're good. So Greyboxer, do you remember the sign off, the 2-person sign off?
Yes.
So I think you're going to lead this one off here. How about that? This is it.
All right. Oh, so until next time, this is Greyboxer.
And this is McBeard.
Best of luck.
On the path. Thanks for watching, everybody.